Hi, everyone. Carol here. Today, I'm going to provide you with three different types of exercises that you can do either as an individual or in a paired or group setting. Before I begin, though, I want to share a little bit of a lesson that I got from Spirit this morning. If any of you are subscribed to my YouTube, Instagram, or my website, you'll see that I'm always sharing messages that come to me from Spirit. And I want people to understand these are not messages that I create myself. These are actually received and given to me on a daily basis, and sometimes I get 4 and 5 during the day. And so what I do is I want to turn around and give those back to you. Now, today's lesson was about the creative mind. And so I want to share that really briefly because it's going to tie into these practice exercises that I have for you. So the message that came from Spirit, and again, go ahead and pop over to my Instagram or my Facebook page and you can see this, was the creative mind. Now, we know from parapsychology that the creative mind is closely associated to psi or psychic functioning. And the reason for that is because the creative mind is what we use in order to interpret this information that we get hit with. We get hit with energy and information in the psychic signal, and that has to be transformed into something that's utilizable, something that we can put to a practical application. That is done through the creative mind. So the lesson that came through today was basically, I want you to think of an artist, and an artist uses a paintbrush to paint a painting or a picture. The brush is not the artist, right? We are the artist. The brush is simply the tool that puts the painting onto the canvas. And in the same way, the creative mind is the brush, right? The creative mind is the brush. The creative mind is the tool. Some people will argue that psychic information is coming from the creative mind. Yes, they're very closely linked and they're very closely tied, but the creative mind is not the source. It is the tool. It is like saying that the brush is what created the picture. This is not the case. So I just want to get you thinking about that because creative mind is incredibly important. When we become very logical or linear, or we stop allowing the creative mind to flow, we are stopping the very brush from touching the page. And so what we need to do is find a way to allow the creative mind to come into play. Yes, we can certainly pick it apart and say that the creative mind is going to create its own stuff, right? And that may very well be true, but we're going to learn through time how to discern and how to do better with what's a psychic signal and what's kind of just this mishmash that's going on in the background or our own actual creative mind. We could talk about that more at another time. So let's get into 3 exercises that I have for you that will force you to use the creative mind. Okay, the first one is going to involve a pen and paper. And I realize this probably seems very, very simple, and some of you may not be into writing, but then again, some of you might. Writing is a very creative pursuit. So the point of this particular exercise is to, again, to get you into that creative mind. Only rather than using a paintbrush, you're going to be using a pen. And what I want you to do is I want you to write a story. Now, you're not supposed to think about the story. This is the difference between the creative mind that we generate ourselves and the creative mind that comes from an outside source. So let me explain that just a little bit more. When you want to create a story, you're going to think about it. You can, what character do I want to use? Where's it going to take place? You're giving it all of this forethought and all of this attention. And so what I want you to do is not to think about it. I simply want you to sit down and I want you to write a story. Now, when you do that, the intention that should be behind that is just an intention for whatever information and insight that you need to know today. It could be about a relationship. It could be about work. But again, you're not thinking about these things. You just want to write a story. So it may seem a little complicated at first, but I want to just get you into that space of not thinking. This is where the psychic mind comes into play. So just sit down with pen and paper and don't go, well, I don't know what to write about. Maybe you get the color blue comes to mind. So I'm going to write a blue duck walk across the road. The blue duck all of a sudden figured out that it couldn't fly. Well, the reason it couldn't fly was because its wing was wounded. It was the left wing. Something was wrong with the left wing. And then And then I realized, oh, there's a big pain in the neck or in the back, or there's a sprain. And the duck really, really wants to fly, but he's scared to move it. So I want you to follow that story. Let the creative mind come through. Now, the next question is going to be, what does a blue duck have to do? Why is this psychic? And maybe your story will be very more to the point. It will be about a relationship, or it'll be very literal. The point is just to get you into that creative flow and to not stop. This is very key when it comes even to channeling written work. You just want to start writing. You just want to let the process flow. If mishmash words come out, let them happen. It's totally okay. And what you may even find will happen is after you've been writing for a couple of minutes, things will suddenly change. There will be a turn. So it may not make sense to you in the beginning, but I want you to keep writing. If you want to ask a question, that's fine. I think that there's twofold problem with that. You'll start to think about the answer. If you feel like you can ask a pointed question and that's going to help you, that's okay. But remember, I don't want you to think about the answer. So creative writing can be a very, very positive way to get you to start moving in a direction of connecting with the creative mind. When that creative mind is flowing, that is when psychic information can come through, gets interpreted by the creative mind, and through the use of the pen ends up on your paper. I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be psychic right off the get-go. It might just be simple things from your subconscious mind coming to the surface that needs to be dealt with. But you might find that out of that whole, let's say you write 2 pages, right? Out of that whole 2 pages, there may be 1 or 2 sentences that really catch you off guard and you go, wow, where did that come from? That might have very well been the exact psychic or spiritually inspired insight that you needed to help you with the problem that you were writing about. So doing this is a very simple way to get you started on using your creative mind. But if writing isn't something that works for you, I've got another idea, so stay tuned. Okay, for this exercise, you can use either some colored pencils. You don't have to use the colored pencils. They're really just an extra added bonus. Or if you've got some crayons, you can still use pencil or pen if that's what you want. The other thing is I want you to use an outline of just a human body, and it doesn't need to be gender specific. So you can either get this from the link below that you're going to find here in the show notes, or you can go online and you can actually find different pictures and outlines that you may be interested in. The point of this exercise is for you to become self-aware. It is also to use the creative mind in order to gain insights that you need. I think it's really important that people remember that psychic awareness is about self-awareness. It's about recognizing what we need to know for ourselves, not just for others. Now, if you want to use this with other people, you certainly can, but be sure that you're getting permission to do this. So the point of this particular outline and the point of the colored pencils or even your pen and paper is to sit down and to ask yourself, where on this particular diagram are you feeling drawn? Maybe you're moving to the feet at this particular moment. Perhaps your eyes are drawn to the feet. And as you move to the feet, I want you to take a color and I want you to say, what color is associated with the feet? Now, for me, as I look at the feet, I'm immediately being drawn to the color brown. And I also feel like the feet both are very weak and sore and tired. So there's some stress and some swelling that's going on in the feet. And so we can start to kind of just tap in and hone in onto this area and ask ourselves what we're feeling. We can do the same for our hands. We can actually, if we want to get specific, we can think about a particular organ in the body, such as the heart. So if you would like to actually get a diagram that has different organs on it, you can. You can get as complicated as you want. You can maybe focus on the ears or even the eyes. So the point of this is to take this diagram and to allow yourself to step out of your body and to focus on the diagram. Now, the diagram can represent you, right? This is basically a holographic image of you. And that gets you out of your mind, so to speak. It gets you out of trying to focus on your body because you're focused on the image. This can also be incredibly helpful if you're pairing or partnering with someone and you can focus on the image. Now, the reason this can be beneficial is if we are psychically focused on a partner and picking up on them, we are directly connecting our energy to them. And those energies can actually blend, and then we can start to feel them in our body. If we're not very good at detaching or disentangling from that energy when we're done with our sitter, we don't know how to do that. Using an image like this can be a really good way to help reduce that energy commingling. It kind of puts a barrier between you and the other person without limiting the information. So let's say, for example, this is my friend Sue, right? This is just a random name. So I write Sue's name at the top and I start to think of this as Sue. And so I ask myself, where here on Sue am I particularly drawn? Now, for me, I immediately feel some type of a sensation in my lower abdomen area. And I could start to look at that area here on this figure and go, what's going on there? What is that related to? And I can pick up a color, and what color comes to mind? For me, it's the color orange, which actually is related to the chakra. So that tells me that there may be something chakra based going on here. So the point of this is to use this particular diagram as an example, either for yourself or for someone that has agreed to allow you to do this, and to just start to get creative with the colors, with where you're drawn. And the next thing you're going to know, and I'll do this sometimes in the sitting with individuals, is you'll start writing notes over here. What is it that comes up for that person? Maybe you'll hear a little snippet of information, or maybe you'll get a visual. Go ahead and put all of that information on the piece of paper, whether it's for you or for the other person. Now, if it's for the other person, ideally, you would want to validate that. If it's for yourself, you're going to want to take a look at that and say, how does this information fit for me? It's really very interesting. So it's, again, another way, though, to get you into the creative mind and to use some tools to get you being in the flow of things without actually overthinking it. Now, the other option, and even though I said there were 3 exercises, this is the third one. And I'll also put a link up to this one. This is actually, as you can see, it's another outline which specifically relates to the chakras. Now, if you're not associated or you don't have any background with the chakras, that's totally fine. This may not be the exercise for you. But for many people in the metaphysical community, the chakra system, or even the spiritual community, the chakra system is very well known. And we can use that as a tool for tapping into either ourselves or for someone else. So, for example, again, we're using our creative mind. As you look at this particular image, I want you to ask yourself, which of those colors really stands out as being the ones that you're particularly drawn to at this time? And again, let's make sure that this either represents you or someone that has agreed to do this exercise with you. Now, for me, I'm just going to say, this is really attached to me right now. And the 2 that really stand out for me in this particular moment is most definitely the throat chakra, which is here, right? And that's because I'm speaking and I'm communicating. So it makes sense to me that that one feels very, very strong. The next one that I feel that I'm really drawn to in the moment is my particular heart chakra. And that's because I'm doing something that I love, that I'm passionate about, but also I want this to really be beneficial for others. So my heart is really into this endeavor. Now, let's say, for example, I look at these others and say, which ones feel weaker to me? Why do they feel weaker? What's going on there? This is, again, where you have to drop the analytical mind and ask yourself, what does each one of these feel like? Does the color feel stronger for you? Does the color feel lighter, darker? Is there a spin or an energetic vibration that's there? Because remember, your creative mind is going to be very different than my creative mind. But by using something like a visual, for example, we can actually get out of that mind and use the creative process. Again, if you want to, you can take either colored pencils or pen and pencil, and you can start making notes that are associated with each one of these particular chakras. And if there's anything else that you need to add, feel free to put that on the paper. Then, of course, I always say, please make sure that you're validating that with your partner if you're doing this as a paired exercise or even in a group setting. like a development circle. But if it's for you, really take a look at that and say, that's really interesting. If you noted an issue in a particular area, you want to explore that further. And you may want to do that in meditation or by going to your creative writing journal and doing it there. So these are three just quick, simple ways that you can actually start practicing and using the creative mind. We need to allow the creative mind to flow freely in order for us to paint the psychic picture that we are being given. If we don't do that, we're suppressing the creative mind, which is going to suppress and make that information reception much harder. It's like holding a paintbrush, but not wanting to touch the easel. You're not going to get anywhere. So these little creative steps will help you in moving in that direction of letting things flow freely and unlocking this linear mindset that we have. Especially if you're in meditation, sometimes people are so busy and so intense that they're not releasing and relaxing and letting the creative mind come through. I'll close by simply saying that sometimes people are concerned about whether or not, again, it's coming from the self or whether or not it is a psychic or spiritual type of connection. In the beginning, I would say, don't worry about it. You are going to find over time which ones of these feel like they're coming from you and which ones actually have a different type of signature related to them. It's going to take time and some discernment, or it may be very clear for you right out of the get-go. Oh, wow, this isn't something that I would come up for myself. So let that evolve. If you're too busy analyzing it in the beginning, you're shutting it down. The point of this is to let the information start flowing. And these are just three different creative ways that you can begin to make that happen. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.